This is a unique car, and today I'm going to show it to you. And I'll say right away, although you probably already guessed, that we're in the Verkhnyaya Pyshma Museum, and it's just paradise here. It's simply paradise. Paradise, not just for me, but for you too, my curious viewer. It's a short drive from Yekaterinburg, but you'll be walking around the museum for a long time, and it's incredibly easy to get lost on the grounds. The total area of the complex is about 85,000 square meters. The museum's collection includes 12,000 exhibits, but that's for now. What do we know about the ZIM? It took only 2 years from the blueprints to the assembly line. That's very little time. The ZIM was the first executive class model produced by the Gorky automobile plant. And what else? Here it is. The ZIM became the first car in the world with a unibody of such length. With a wheelbase of 3,200 millimeters, it was a very risky move, but it worked out. The car began production in the late 1940s. At first, the cars were not delivered to the public, nor to mid-level party officials. They were being refined. And only on the 13th of October, 1950 was the first industrial batch of ZIMs assembled. The designer Andrei Alexandrovich Lipgard received his 5th Stalin Prize for his work on this project. And what did we actually get as a result? Over 5 meters in length and 2 tons of beauty. The ZIM became the embodiment of a new global trend. A foreign one, I should note. And right away, there was no copying involved before you start saying otherwise. A pontoon-style body. To explain what that means. Visually, the fenders stand out, but they're no longer as ornate as on earlier cars, and they flow smoothly into the body. But our designers added a bit of their own vision to the pontoon layout so that the long side wouldn't look flat. The rear fenders were made more sculpted, accentuating them, something like that. And it became even more obvious who they were, inspired by the Cadillac Fleetwood. And of course, what's a car without chrome, comrades? Chrome is luxurious, expensive, and beautiful. How many deer do you see on the front end? There are 2. The second one is hidden inside the flag on the hood. A bit more about our overseas colleagues. Many cars of that era had 2 windows on the side. But the ZIM boasted 3 at once, hinting at the boundlessness of its interior. The large cabin was precisely why officials chose to turn the ZIM into an ambulance, but let me say right away, that wasn't the only reason. There simply weren't any other suitable cars in the USSR at that time, although they did make ambulances out of the Pobeda too. But that's another story. So here's how it went. They didn't change the body to suit the needs of medical workers, and didn't turn the sedan into a station wagon, but there were some changes. Take a look. The trunk hinges. They're on top. In this case, it's now a door. In the original version, the hinges were located inside. Here, though, they stick out. That's a distinctive feature of this car. They stick out on the outside, but at least they don't get in the patient's way inside. The heavy steel lid is supported by 2 metal struts. That's more reliable. There's a small light, interior lighting, and the inside is lined with leatherette over hardboard for softness. Now, let's pick the most compact person and try to fit them in there. Go ahead. Under the armpits, hold on tight so you can't even breathe or fart. They actually made it pretty careful here with the legs, but 1, 2, 3. We've got a heavy kid here. Thank God there are wheels on that side. But the boy definitely needs to eat less, more. And here, you need to lift it up. But how do you do that? Like this. Secured. Roma, why are you really so fat? Of course, the interior itself has lost the luxury of nomenclatura transport. Velour has disappeared everywhere. It's just not practical. But at the same time, the seating is still covered with a pleasant-to-the-touch fabric. There's less chrome, but it's still present on the handles and some interior elements. The cabin is designed for 3 people. 2 medics sit in their seats. The medics are seated. No additional comfortable seats were made for the doctors. In the ZIM's cabin, there are jump seats. These are extra fold-down seats. So they have just recently installed these brand new comfortable seats in this area. It's quite noticeable that there is absolutely no medical equipment present here at all, which is a significant observation. The only item that has been provided, in stark contrast to any medical apparatus, is a small compact case containing various essential medicines, presumably for basic first aid or minor ailments. They didn't get rid of the rear vent windows. I think in hot weather, that was a real help. But the windows in the medical compartment are frosted, which makes sense. The driver's seat is separated by a painted metal partition with a fixed window. There's a special little window here for communicating with the driver. You probably have to shout really loudly for him to hear you, right? There are mounting points for handles that were never installed, and most likely a spot for an ashtray. Well, what else could there be? In the cabin, there are only two light sources, a small ceiling lamp and a bulb in the trunk. Can you imagine how dark it gets in here in the evening or at night? As for other comfort features, there's a window for the doctor that opens. On the left side, it doesn't open, and there are two small vent windows. I think it must have been pretty hot in here during the summer, and probably not too great in the winter either. On the sides, there are two air deflectors. Warm air comes in from the front part of the car. It's a questionable solution, of course, but oh well. The suspension here is classic. There's a solid axle with leaf springs in the back and independent suspension in the front, but as they say, there are some nuances. There are lower control arms, but they're made up of two parts, outer and inner, connected by a pin through a strut, and there are springs. But what you definitely won't see are shock absorbers, even though they are there. On top, there's a lever-type shock absorber, and its lever actually serves as a suspension arm. And the Pobeda has exactly the same setup, basically. The ZIM is just an enlarged Pobeda. And it also has 15-inch wheels. 15-inch wheels appeared for the first time on a passenger car, specifically on the ZIM, at least in the USSR. I'd also like to point out the car's beige color. In the 50s, this would become the calling card of all ambulance vehicles. The familiar white color would appear a bit later, and there's no familiar beacon here either. Instead, there's an elegant dome light with a red cross, and of course a searchlight on the left fender. They didn't bother coming up with a special hood lifting mechanism. Can you imagine what kind of hinges you'd need for something like that? Phew. That's why it opens to both sides, one after the other. And also, the ZIM isn't completely frameless. There's a subframe under the engine. In my opinion, this mechanism is even trickier. A hinge with a lock. But it's logical and clear why they did it this way. Here's something interesting, but not obvious. This engine is standardized with the Gas 51, the Pobeda, and the Future Gas 69. The standardization reaches up to 50%. And that's because the ancestor of all Gorky engines is the Gas 11, which is a reimagined Chrysler engine that was used in the Dodge D5. It has its own name, the Gas 12. It features an aluminum cylinder head and a 2-barrel carburetor. At the time, this was an advanced solution. Its displacement is 3,485 cubic centimeters. Thanks to the aforementioned features, the power output increased and reached a maximum of 90 horsepower at 3,600 revolutions per minute. The maximum torque is 215 Newton meters at 2,100 revolutions per minute. Well, here we are in the cabin. It's a bit cramped like this, but there's endless width. The bench seat isn't adjustable by design. The backrest is almost vertical, but it's soft, very much so. And here's another example of unification. The dashboard is just like the one in the Pobeda, only much more stretched out. And the clock, by the way, is wound for a whole week. The handbrake is quite enormous, truly like a substantial boarding hook. Here you will find a distinct lever for the precise opening and closing of the radiator shutters. Low beam, high beam. This is the start button. So the flag for turning on the wipers, windshield wipers, suction, lattice. But there is no music, so it's just a grid. But here's where the ashtray is hidden. And of course, a cigarette lighter for noble dance. On the dashboard, there are indicator lights signaling that the handbrake is engaged and that the water temperature in the cooling system is high. And of course, all the bare metal is painted in the appropriate color. And now we've broken free onto open ground, and this ground is boundless. We're driving through the museum grounds. I'm driving and not shifting gears, even though I could. How the heck am I actually doing this? How the heck is this even possible? There's a hydraulic coupling in place of the traditional flywheel right here, which is quite unusual. This design lets you drive like it's an automatic. In the city, you can stay in second gear, even slow down briefly and then start moving again. And even in top third gear, you can crawl along slowly and then speed up. And the engine pulls through, and for a fairly large car, it has a small turning radius 6 meters. There's no power steering, but honestly, you don't really need it. The car is very responsive, and when you're maneuvering, the body just sways. Like jelly on a platter, maybe not jelly on a plate, but very gentle. After the factory was renamed in 1957, ZIM became GAZ. Accordingly, the model was renamed as well. But among the people, the name GAZ-12 never caught on, and the car was always called ZIM, even without the number 12. Why? Because there were no more ZI-MIS. Production was discontinued in 1959. However, the ambulance versions were assembled until 1960. The exact number of ambulances produced is unknown, but a total of 21,527 ZIMs were manufactured. And that's the end of the story. And whoever listened, well done. ZIM is a very controversial car, but also a very cool one. Once again, I don't know how to wrap this up. Study history, learn it, and the hunt goes on.